Thank you for tuning in to 5 Minutes With. My name is Bob Zinsser. I'm your host, and I have the pleasure today of speaking with Mitchell Yaas. And Mitchell works on things, the Yaas Method for pain-free movement. This is near and dear to my heart, as we just talked about. But I wanted to thank you for being here today, Mitchell. And we're going to talk a little bit about, ask you some questions, but it's a very interesting topic.
It's a big topic, the biggest topic in relating to health in the world. 130 million Americans and 1 billion people worldwide suffer with chronic pain.
All you have to do is visit the hospitals or go to the pharmacy and see how many prescriptions they're filling. They can't fill them fast enough.
There you go. And in fact, the opioid epidemic, which oftentimes is skewed to indicate that maybe there's a bunch of 18-year-olds trying to find a new way of getting street heroin, was actually based on the chronic pain epidemic, which reached this number of people, hundreds of millions of people. That's what led to them now having to try to mask people's symptoms, which led to the opioid epidemic.
So tell me about your business, how you got started in it, and more importantly, how do you approach people and what do you look for? How do you get in front of people that you can help?
So first off, I don't really consider this a business, which is an unusual thing. I actually think I'm being asked from some higher power to have learned this understanding that I have in terms of how to diagnose the cause of pain. And I've been doing this for 30 years, and basically right at the time when I was graduating physical therapy school, I was now going to treat people. And to me, when someone was standing in front of me, the most obvious question to ask was, where was your pain? And it would turn out they would point to a place where that's not where the pain should be if that MRI identified structural variation, like a herniated disc, stenosis, or a meniscal tear, should be. So I decided to go on and start interpreting people's symptoms, kind of ignoring the MRI finding, and what I found was in more than 98% of cases, the cause of people's pain is muscular. I had taught myself a way of strength training by applying the laws of physics, which allowed me to personally put on 60 pounds of muscle, and that became my methodology in which I treat people. So where people may have pain for 10, 20, 30 years, they come to me, I confirm it is muscular in terms of the cause of their pain, and I do an exercise routine with them, and they're out of pain in a treatment or 2 treatments, just weeks.
So you touched on it, but let's focus in on what is the major cause of pain?
So I want people to understand that the way the system works right now is that you have pain, you seek care. The first thing that's asked of you is to get an MRI, and it finds a structural variation at the time of your pain, and because of that, it is asserted to be the cause of your pain. Well, this is known as correlative theory or junk science, and in fact, it's the equivalent of saying, if I open my front door when the sun rises, I could say opening my front door causes the sun to rise, which clearly isn't true. Right? Well, that's what this is saying. It's saying that just because that was found at the time of your pain doesn't mean it is the cause of your pain. You have to look at the symptoms, because symptoms are real. That's what's happening at the moment. And symptoms would show that that couldn't be the cause. That's where I then went on to recognize that the symptoms in most cases, more than 98% of cases, is muscular in nature.
Okay. That makes sense. It makes perfect sense, because one of the things that I got involved in when I had back pain was I said I got this close to being in surgery. And I said, I'm done with this. I'm not doing this. I took the things in my own hands. I started doing Pilates, which is strengthening the core because it's a back issue. And it went away.
Right.
Stopped doing Pilates, it came back.
Right. And to me, the big question I would ask everyone to ask themselves, the big question is, do you find that your pain is associated with activity? That, in fact, bending, twisting, going downstairs, kneeling, reaching, any of this type stuff incites the pain, and then when you rest, it goes away. If that's the case, how could you tell me it's a structural variation, a meniscal tear, or arthritis? Those are constant, so you must have constant pain. If you're describing it as associated with activity and decreasing with rest, you're clearly identifying a muscular cause. It has to be. There's no alternative.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
But again, we get locked into going through the process of the doctors and the procedures and all of that, which may get you temporary relief.
Correct. One point I'd also like to say is that, let's say, pain is an indication of a tissue in distress, right? No one should deny that. right? So if somebody says that they're treating you for a particular tissue, whether it's identified on MRI or however, and you continue to have that pain through this period of treatment, and maybe it's going for months or years, at some point, don't you have to say to yourself, isn't it possible that maybe this person is treating the wrong tissue?
Yeah.
Which is why the tissue in distress that's actually eliciting my symptom has not been identified and continues to do that.
Right.
So that would be something that I would want people watching to recognize. If you're being treated for a period of time and you're still having your symptom, please think to yourself, maybe the wrong tissue is being treated, and maybe this guy, with no due respect to their education or training, just might not be educated or trained to identify it properly.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to look to an alternative.
I mean, I can't help but wonder, but comment briefly on how you work with people. Is this done face-to-face? Is it where you're teaching them how to do these types of exercises, if you will?
Sure.
Whatever it is that you're advising them to do. How do you work with people hands-on?
So I have an office in Jacksonville off Phillips Highway. It's a 1,500 square foot space with the highest level of weightlifting equipment, and your visit always begins with an evaluation. And in the evaluation, we're going to talk. And I'm going to try to understand the history of what's going on, because what you don't realize is everything you say and everything you do is a part of your symptoms. It's not just the pain itself. Everything about what brings it on, what have you done to correct it, if it hasn't worked, all of these type things. So we start with that. Then I'm going to do a physical evaluation. And the goal of all of this is for me to come out and say, this is the tissue in distress creating your pain. Now, if it's found to be muscular, that's basically happening because you live in a gravitational environment. Your gravity's pushing down on you, and you got to push up against gravity to do activity. If your muscles aren't strong enough, they're going to strain. That's the cause. So ultimately, we're going to do some sort of targeted strength training for those specific muscles, and the goal is to get those force outputs greater than the force requirements of your activity. That's what allows you to be function pain-free and fully. And along with that concept, which is something I'm very proud of, since 2015, I did a PBS special. I got recognition globally, so I do Zoom sessions as well for people all over the internationally with the same intent. So you don't just have to get this in person, it can be done through Zoom.
That's terrific.
But if you are in Jacksonville or have access to Jacksonville, certainly please consider coming to the office.
That's terrific. I'm really glad that we connected with one another, that I'm learning more about this, again, for my own benefit. But how can people get in touch with you, Mitchell? What's the best way?
So if you are local, the easiest is the phone number, 904-906-YAS. 904-906-YAS, Y-A-S-S.
I love it. It's simple.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. That's my name, my last name, so it made it real easy. You have my email, which is drmitch@mitchellyaas.com, and my website, livewithoutpains, plural, livewithoutpains.com. There's a contact us button, or you can schedule on there as well.
Lots of ways. No excuse.
Absolutely, man. No excuse to use this.
So if you got pain, Mitchell is your man. I want to thank you all for listening today, and certainly for your participation, Mitchell. This has been enjoyable. Again, this is Bob Zinsser with 5 Minutes With, and if you need to find more and re-look at this video clip, it's at iwannabuzz.com. Thank you to all of the watching, and have a great day.